Alright, so we're doing exercise 5b, and in this video I'm going to be doing question 8b, which is asking us to sketch the graphs of each of the following relations, stating, and here is a special word, the maximal domain and the range of each. And what we've been given here is y equals the square root of 2x minus 5. Hopefully, upon seeing this, you can recognize that this is going to be a square root graph. So I'm going to break this down into 4 steps. First, we're going to find what my domain is. Then we're going to find what my x-intercept is. Then the y-intercept, and then we'll sketch it. So let's now zoom in and have a closer look. So, why am I figuring out what my domain is going to be first? Well, I know my domain, by definition, is the set of all the possible x values. Well, are there any x values that I can't put into this? Well, I know that when I'm dealing with a square root, I can't have a negative number be inside of that. So I can't square root a negative number. So that means when I'm coming here now, I know that 2x minus 5 has to be greater than or equal to 0. Because if a number is less than 0, it's going to be negative, and I can't have a negative number underneath this square root. So now I want to find what does my x have to equal in order to get a value for this whole thing being greater or equal to 0. So I'm just going to do some simple rearranging. So I'm going to plus 5 to both sides and then divide by 2. So I'm going to get x is greater than or equal to 5 over 2. So what I'm saying is, as long as x is greater than or equal to 5 over 2, then my number underneath the square root will be positive, and therefore my graph will exist. And what we're going to see is that this is going to be my domain. Because remember, the domain is just the set of all the possible x values, and here I'm telling you that my x values are going to be from 5 over 2 to infinity. So I could write this down right here. We're jumping straight to the punch, but my maximal domain, if I was to write it down, would be 5 over 2 to infinity. This would be my domain. We're going to see that later on when we come to sketch it, but there you go. There's the answer to your question in the first few seconds of the video. Let's now find what my x-intercept will be. To find my x-intercept, I'm going to let y equal 0. So as you know, I have y equals the square root of 2x minus 5. To find my x-intercept, I'm going to sub in 0 into my y spot. Then I'm going to rearrange. I'm going to square both sides. The square of 0 is 0, and the square of this side is going to get rid of my square root sign. The square of this side will get rid of my square root sign. I will then do some fancy rearranging, and I'm going to get 5 over 2 equals x. Now I'm going to go on to find my y-intercept. So again, I have y equals the square root of 2x minus 5. To find my y-intercept, I let x equal 0. So I come here and I get rid of that x, because I'm going to let x equal 0. 2 times 0 is 0, so I'm going to be left with y equals the square root of negative 5, and this is all our worst nightmares coming true. You can't square root a negative number, so this tells me that there are no y-intercepts. So that's important. There are no y-intercepts. This is going to be my x-intercept. So now, let's come to our graph and give it a sketch. So here is my graph, and we know that my x-intercept, let me put that down first. We know that my x-intercept will be 5 over 2. So 1, 2 is going to be here. So I'm going to put that in, 5 over 2, 0. And we know what a square root graph looks like. It's going to look like this. Remember, there is no y-intercept, so this makes perfect sense. And also remember, and this is basically all we have to draw for this. It's going to be my x-intercept here, and this is what it looks like. So nothing too strenuous there. When it comes to finding out what my domain is, we already have figured that out. I told you before that it's going to be 5 on 2 to infinity. And that is the same thing as saying it's going to be x is greater than or equal to 5 on 2. These two things are the same. My range will be all my y values. So as you can see here, it's going to start at 0 and go all the way up. And this line here, not only is it going in the positive x direction, so meaning it's heading towards infinity in the x direction, but it's also going up. So that means it's going to start at 0 and go up to infinity. I can write this differently, and this is how the back of the book writes it. It says it's all real numbers, but it's not all real numbers, it's all the real positive numbers, sorry. It's all the real positive numbers, including, so the union of 0. So let me say that again. It's all the real positive numbers with the union of 0. Hopefully this has been helpful to you in answering this question. So this question was 8b. There are a few steps to it, but hopefully it all makes sense.